Oh, okay. So the live stream is started as well.
Great. Welcome, everyone. We're just letting people filter in. We'll be getting started momentarily.
So we have quite a lot of interest. At last, we have 250 people who signed up. So let's see who will be here today. But we have already quite a few people coming in, which is great. Welcome to all of you. We'll give it a moment more until the room is a little bit fuller. So I think maybe we can start off, right?
Yes, I think so. Welcome, everyone, to this webinar. My name's Sam Holder. I'm the pedagogical designer at Urgency, and I'm joined by my colleague Natalie, who will speak in just a moment. But we wanted to, before we actually jump into the webinar, give a little bit of information about the technical side of things. We are live streaming this webinar on YouTube, on the Urgency YouTube page, which means it will also be available later for watching at your leisure. It'll also be available in different languages too. In fact, I believe all of the languages that will be interpreted today, and that includes Italian, Portuguese, Arabic, and French. So if you look on the bottom toolbar of the Zoom window, you'll see interpretation. You can choose the channel that you prefer. If you have any issues with interpretation, just make sure to post it in the chat. Natalie and I will be monitoring the chat, and we will also be monitoring the Q&A button. So also on the bottom toolbar, you'll see a button that says Q&A. We really would love if you engaged with our presentations and our panelists and our farmers. And if you put a question in the Q&A, our presenters will address them either directly, or we can bring them up in the webinar itself during the Q&A part of the conversation. I think, Natalie, is there anything else you wanted to mention?
Yes, just for everyone. So you have, as Sam mentioned, we have 4 languages available. So, and you have the little interpretation button at the bottom. It's a little globe at the bottom of your screen where you can switch between channels. But all speakers will speak in English. So if you just want to stick to English, you can stay in the main room, but you can listen to French, Italian, or Arabic then as well. And Portuguese, excuse me. So yes, so welcome everyone, and we're really happy to be able to have amazing speakers here today. And so I'm gonna pass it on to Anna from DERFA, who are the main organizers of this webinar, to give you an introduction to what this is all about and who will be speaking. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Natalie, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. I'm Anna Morera from the Italian NGO DERFA and coordinator of the Erasmus project MedCaravan, the Mediterranean Caravan Learning and Sharing Agroecology. MedCaravan aims to share agroecological knowledge of our rural communities in the Mediterranean basin. Healthy agricultural soils are the foundations for ensuring food security and proper nutrition now and in the future. They play a key role in the carbon cycle, storing and filtering water and improving resilience to floods and droughts. especially in our Mediterranean countries with water stress, effective soil fertility and water management techniques are needed. It is a pleasure to introduce our webinar on soil fertility and water management. Thanks a lot for being here, all of you. We are quite a lot of people. Now we are launching We are launching the survey to find out who you are and where are you coming from. You will see that over your screen will appear a link, and please, we invite you to answer the questions that you will find here. You will see here in the chat, maybe, is there already some? Could you launch our poll?
Yes, sorry, I'm having a little bit of a difficulty here. Let me just try one more time.
Yes, I cannot see that.
I don't know. Natalie, actually, maybe, could you try to launch it? There it is.
Okay. The first poll, welcome. We invite you to answer this question. Welcome. Are you a farmer, an agronomist, a researcher, an activist, a student, a food consumer? It is really easy to answer, and we invite you to interact with us so we will have an idea who you are, where are you coming from.
While you fill out the poll, we'll have one short poll after this as well, but while you're doing that, I invite everyone also to, in the chat, just answer 3 questions for us. So what we're looking for is just your name, your organization, if you're coming from an organization, and what your favorite vegetable is, since we are in an agroecological webinar.
Or microorganism of the soil, if you want, as well, as we are talking about the soil. We invite you to become a bacteria. It could be cool. I think that there are some misunderstandings for the people who doesn't know how to put the interpretation. As there are some questions out in the Q&A, because they are asking where they can find the interpretation tool, but it's pretty difficult to explain that in English. They do not speak English. So maybe in the chat or in the Q&A, maybe you could write where the button is to find the interpretation channel.
Sure, of course. The interpretation channels are found on the bottom toolbar of the Zoom window, all the way to the right. So it's the furthest most right button. It says interpretation, looks like a globe. If you click on the globe, the different language channels will be available to you. If you still have trouble, please do post your question in the chat.
They are all saying that the chat is disabled, that it's not working. Oh, we have the poll. We have quite a lot of farmers, the 21%. I think that you all can see the answers, I guess. So Sam, please, can you confirm that? Yes. So we have the 21% farmers, agronomists and researchers are really here. Okay, that's good. We have a nice possibility to interact and exchange some experience, farmers and agronomists, who will have the most interesting experience. Then we have some students, some activists, and I've missed the last one, food activists, that they were the last ones.
Here's the second poll, Anna. And I apologize to everyone about the chat. The chat now should be live to everyone.
Okay. So please, once again, remember that the channel interpretation is down on the right, and you can choose Italian, English, not English, it's already, French, Portuguese, and Arabic. The second poll, we want to learn where are you coming from, which part of the Mediterranean are you from? Southern European coast, Western Asian coast, North African coast, not from a Mediterranean region. That's a good answer, as I've seen that there are some people from Ecuador. So please, there are some people even from Switzerland, from, from Kenya. Wow, that's cool. They have people from every part of the world. Oh, there is a Romanesco. Who is here, Romanesco? Are you Catalan? It's one of my favorite dishes. I'm Catalan. I don't know. But Romanesco is also cabbage as well, not just the Catalan. Okay, we have most of the people are coming from the southern European coast. Welcome, Mediterranean basin. Western Asian coast, North African coast. We are missing some. Not from Mediterranean region. We have quite a lot of people not from a Mediterranean region. Wow, welcome here to listen about our experiences on soil fertility and water management in the Mediterranean basin. Now, as we have really short time, I would like to introduce the first of our speakers, Paula Cassiano, who is an expert in regenerative agriculture, who will introduce the topic of soil fertility and the false experience in Italy. Then we will listen to David Alevar, a Portuguese expert who will talk about water management. And we encourage you to use the Q&A to write your questions. Now I will pass the ball to Paula, and thanks a lot for being here and share your experience.
Thank you, Anna, and thanks everybody for joining. I'm gonna share my screen now to start my presentation. Just give me 1 second. Okay, I hope you can see my presentation now. Full screen, right? Yeah, good. Okay, so yeah, as Anna mentioned, I'm Paola Castiano from the AFAL NGO, and today I'm gonna talk to you briefly about soil fertility and how we manage it in the AFAL according to our to the principles regarding regenerative agriculture. So as you may already know, soil is a crucial resource for many reasons because it provides ecosystem services, it's the habitat for many organisms, and also it's part of our natural heritage. And for these reasons, it's really important to take care of it. And to take care of soil, of course, we, especially in agriculture, we really have to focus on soil fertility. Soil fertility has been described in many different ways, but I would say that the main definition is that it's the ability to sustain plant growth by providing essential plant nutrients and favorable chemical, physical, and biological characteristics, because they are all important parts of soil. And of course, these characteristics of every soil depend on air that is in the soil, on water, on mineral particles, and most of all, it really depends on soil organic matter. That is the key for regenerative agriculture. So how should we take care of soils? Where for sure there are many options available. It really depends from the context where you are, from the resources that you can use, and there are different techniques. But I really believe that the main focus are these 4 that I have been highlighting here, and now I'm gonna talk to you about each of them more in detail. So the first one is to know your soil. Of course, this is the very essential first important step that you have to do when you start cultivating a soil, and you can do it in different ways. The more conventional way is to do physicochemical analysis of your soil. So this allows you to understand what are the main characteristics that could be, for example, the pH of the soil solution, or the texture of your soil, or the organic matter content. And these are all important things, but for sure they are not enough to know, because first of all, they can not these ones, but other physical-chemical characteristics of your soil can change over time. And of course, you cannot keep measuring it every day if you also need to grow stuff on your soil. So it's also important to, to observe, to do empirical observations, and you can do it in different ways. For example, here you see a soil spade or a soil auger, and it's important to use this kind of tools to get samples from your soil. Maybe you can do it more times during the year to see how it changes during the year, according also to the climatic conditions, the weather. And this will allow you to extract and observe different soil horizons, that are the different layers that create your soil. And as you can see from this picture, where we extracted a soil sample from the top layers to the ones that are more in depth, soil really change in depth. And it's important to observe it, to see how the texture can change, the color. This will give you information about minerals that are there, and maybe if you have waterlogging, if you have problem in structure, and different kind of things. Then the second important point is to mind the carbon balance. And this basically means to try to increase as far as possible the carbon inputs and to reduce the carbon outputs. This is important, especially in the Mediterranean region, because soil organic matter is really a scarce resource in these areas. As you can see from this map, here the soil organic carbon content is represented with dark color, and as you can see in many areas of the Mediterranean the Mediterranean countries, in the top soil, so in the first 5 centimeters of soils, that is the part of soil that contains more carbon, this is already very low compared, for example, to the northern countries. And this is due to different reasons, can be due to climate, can be due to soil texture. But it is very important to take care of this aspect, and you can find easily online some information about soil organic matter values on your region, to understand if in your soil this value is very low or low or just fine. And so you can understand if this is a really important issue that you have to solve. Soil organic matter is important for many reasons. It has an impact on nutrient availability, on soil structure, and then water holding capacity of your soil. It has an impact on flexibility in working schedule, and I can imagine that this is a very important point for every farmer. And in the end, this has an impact also on pest and disease control, a very important topic as well. And all these elements directly influence crop yield. And that's why we want to take care of soil organic matter. And this is true, especially in low-tech systems. So if you don't want to use fertilizers, if you don't have an irrigation system, if you don't want to till your soil, it's very important to increase the soil organic matter in your soil and allow it to do the job instead of you. So how can we do that? How can we increase the soil organic matter in our soils? So the very first thing is to apply enough and local organic matter. Organic matter is anything, can be crop residues, can be compost, manure, or green manure, cover crops. So yeah, it's important to give back the soil enough organic matter after we harvest what we're growing. Here you can see an example of compost preparation. This is the very first phase where we put all the materials together, raw materials, and then after 3-4 months, this is the final result when the compost is ready to be incorporated in the soil. Then another very important thing is to limit carbon output. That means to avoid soil disturbance. And if you have the possibility, you should really think about going for no tillage. In many cases, this is not really doable because there is a lack of machinery, or maybe the soil type is not suitable to do that. So you can think about going to minimum tillage. So it's a bit less extreme, but still very useful. And if also minimum tillage is not doable due to your particular condition, then you should absolutely think about going for cover crops or green manure. There are many different options, many different species you can use according to the area where you are and what are the main focus that you want to, the main benefits that you want to achieve in your soil. Here you can see some examples in an olive orchard or in a vineyard. And yeah, apart from avoiding like cover crops and green manure are good not only to avoid soil disturbance, but they provide many other ecological benefits, and that's why we should really try to use them as much as possible. Then the third point I would like to highlight is to avoid soil erosion. Of course, this is a crucial thing, and it's also very important in the Mediterranean areas, because most of the Mediterranean countries are really have this big problem. And if you have cattle, a way you can do that is to practice non-selective grazing. This means that you want to leave a lot of animals on a very small portion of land for a very short time. For example, from 1 to maximum 3 days, you leave a lot of cows grazing on this little plot, and then you move them in another plot. And you will let your animals to go back to that plot only when the plants that compose your pasture, they will be back at the growing stage. That is mainly when they already have flowers, or they're going to flower, or they're going to produce flowers. That is the phase of when the plant is more strong and is ready to be grazed again. And this is very important, because if you keep your animals always grazing on the same area, even if it's a big area, and even if you don't have many animals, they will keep eating the same plants, the ones that are more tasty. And in a short time, these plants will be not available anymore. So the soil will be exposure to erosion. And this will cause, of course, a very problem for soil fertility. And if your farmer is on a slope, you should also really consider keyline design that could be done also in combination with selective grazing, as you can see here from this picture in the top right. And keyline design basically means to do some cracking in the soil to modify the flow of water in the soil. And because, of course, you can imagine the water tends to go from the maximum slope on a hill. But if you make these cracks with your tractor following a specific design that is called the keyline design, this will allow the water to evenly distribute over the hill. This will prevent soil erosion. This will increase the plant's growth, and of course, it's gonna be better for your soil on a long run. And then the very last point I want to mention during my presentation is to increase plant biodiversity. And you can do this. You can increase plant biodiversity both in space and in time. If you want to do it in time, you should really try to plan in advance large crop rotations. You should think about crop rotations that are made of multiple years. You should really focus on doing it per field to avoid repetition of the same crop in a short time in the same field. And if you want to do it in space, you could, there are many options available here. I'm just mentioning 2 examples. One is hedgerows. So for example, here in the left picture, you can see hedgerows can be good for providing shelter or even feed for livestock, but they also can be the habitat for wild animals like birds that then can help you with insect control on your crop. Or you can think about strip intercropping. For example, here you can see maize intercropped with potato. So in this case, we choose to plant 2 different species in combination. But you can, if this is not doable in your farm, you can also think about growing the same species. So for example, just potato, but in different different varieties. And this is really, this can be really helpful to increase biodiversity, reduce disease pressure on your crops, and in the end, will benefit the environment and your soil. Very last thing, it's important to choose the most suitable crops. Of course, this depends on different things. This can be depending to what's your main goal in the short term or in the long term. And for example, if you are in an area that has a very low soil organic content, you want to increase the soil organic matter in your fields, then you could think, and maybe there are no animals, no livestock available, so you don't have manure available easily. You can think about growing crops that have a very big root biomass, and this will allow you to increase the carbon inputs in your soil. So this is the end of my presentation. I thank you for your attention, and I just wanted to remember that if you want to remind you that if you want to know more about these topics, about organic and regenerative agriculture, you can go on our webpage, the AFAL webpage. You will find information in English as well. Or if you can speak or read Italian, you can follow us on our social medias channels, and you will find a lot of information about what we have been doing in Italy in these past years. So thank you a lot, and I will stop to share my screen. And I guess, am I still sharing it, Anna?
Yes, yeah. You should stop sharing. We can still see the links for the AFAL, which is quite cool for us, but maybe you should stop. Okay.
Now, okay, it was just a little bit slow. Okay, so thank you very much. And if you have questions, I will read them in the chat.
Thanks a lot, Paula, for your presentation, and please read the comments because there are a lot of comments in the chat. So, and I know some of the farmers, Charles Zoltan, and it's pretty good. I would like to pass the ball to David Apelar, who will introduce the issue about water management and his experience also in Portugal. Thanks a lot, David. And please use the tool Q&A. Okay.
Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you, Paula, for such an interesting presentation. Some comments. So, if the soil is the matrix that supports life, as Paula told us, now that I will talk about water, I would say that the figure that comes to my mind is the blood of the veins of planet Earth. Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the presentation. I'm David Avar. I'm a researcher, but I'm also a student, an interesting or a beginning farmer, a father, a husband, and a son. So a lot of caps, as you all, and I will try to do my best to share some thoughts about water management. So what's water management? And let's try to go from the patterns to the details. And the first thing I need to start is the hydrological cycle. So our farm, our area, our landscape is somewhere in the middle of a cycle, where a cycle there's no beginning, but let's start with the precipitation, the runoff, the surface water storage, the infiltration, different perspectives of evaporation or evapotranspiration, and then the condensation, and the cycle goes again. It's quite complex, but we can simplify. Let's say that we have a farm with a kind of a slope. We have input, water input, so rain, and we have the output, and we have the flow within this cycle. One of the bad news that we all know is that now we have this input is changing. There's a climate change going on. And related with water management, we are more interested in, we are observing and we are expecting more frequent extremes. Basically, we are talking about more heavy rainfall. So in the Mediterranean region, we know that it will rain less during the year in terms of cumulative, but it will be in short periods. So more frequent and intense rainfall, and the same in the opposite, the droughts. so water scarcity. And that's one of the biggest challenge when we are talking about water management. So how can we deal with a changing input due to climate change? And we know the answers. We should work in both mitigation, so try to avoid that the climate change is going worse. So the most recent models say that we will have 1.5 degrees in 2026, so tomorrow. So a lot of tipping points we will cross. So we should continue avoiding by mitigating. Paula talking about try to storage carbon in the soil, one of the best ways, but also in adaptation. And with water management, we will try to talk in both of these answers. To think about water management, I like to think about the water storage elements. And in a really simple way, we can think about a short-term storage elements like the soil, the spongy that Paula just talked about. That's a medium term, which I would say water surface, so dams, lakes, ponds, swells, somehow. And in the long term, the groundwater. And it's really interesting think about in these three different perspectives when we are talking about a changing climate, because we know in the Mediterranean region we will have more severe droughts and more frequent. So we should try to increase this strategical water storage, because in these years, really severe, it will be our guarantee, it will be our insurance to have water supplied for our demands. So, because I'm biologist, I always like to think about ecosystem-based principles. And try to apply in this water management perspective. One of them I would put like this: use but don't abuse. Try to manage the water demands from our crops, from our systems, within its availability. What's the amount of rainfall that normally goes in your farm or in your region? And if you are creating a crop systems, irrigated crop systems that use much more than the water that comes from input, probably we will have a problem in the future. A second one is give space to the water. And here, give space in the water storage, increase water storage capacity considering precipitation extremes. Always try to think about this 10-year return period or 15 years return period. So this heavy rainfall that will fall down in your farm every 10 years or 50 years. And try to work for that in order to storage and invite the water to infiltrate, because you will need afterwards. Third, diversify water storage elements. Water availability function supported by different sources. We know that the water is crucial for those that are doing agriculture or cattle management, etc. So put everything in one of these storage elements, it's kind of a risky. So it's more intelligent if we try to diversify. So work in soil, like Paula said, dams, ponds, but also in the groundwater. And the last one, cycling and slow down water flows. That's, I would say that it's the most interesting. Promote synergies with living elements. So we know that there's a large hydrological cycle, but we can create smaller but faster hydrological cycles in these, now we call the circular economy. The same pattern applied to our farm. Let's see some examples, and I have my work facilitate because Paul already shows some. One of them is the key line from Yeomans. So to add what Paul just said, he invites us to think about the scale of permanence, where we have the climate as a base, where depending on our climate, but then we have the landscape. Paul talked about the Yeoman's plow, but we can also think about terrace or swales, and here it depends on the slope, as someone wrote in the chat. The water supply elements, already talked about that, but also the farm roads. It's interesting because normally the mainstream that the farms are just a line, and instead of a line having the farm road in the contour line, this element works as a road to go from one place to another, but also to hold on the water and promote infiltration. The same for the trees, and we will talk about a bit more about this right away. The permanent buildings, where they are positioning in the land and how can they work and help to manage the water. Also the fences, exactly the same. Try to do it in contour line. And then the soil that Paul just said. Here, pictures just to give as an example in green, where we have also the trees dimension of this 3D, three-dimensional, and to see, we see here clearly a line of water, and here what it's happening is when it rains, the water is channelized from the wet areas to more driest areas. And then you have the trees doing this fence that Paul was, just said, about the shading, but also windbreaks, etc. Another message is working with and close to nature to try to manage your water. And some examples. So the current paradigm we know is try to control everything, also nature, in order to have our supply. I think we already know that this is not that smart. So working, try to integrate the nature patterns, the root system that Paul just said, but also diversify in order to work and cooperate with nature. I think it's much more smart. Let's do some examples. Let's start with the soil now, from soil to the larger landscape. Organic matter, living organisms, Paul just said, but also mycorrhiza. So mycorrhiza, this fungi network that works the rhizosphere of all trees, are really crucial to deal with water management, because we know that the mycorrhiza is a kind of the internet of nature. So connect the different elements and give nutrients, but also water as well. So increase a lot the root system, and we know that what we observe is when there's lack of water, the systems with less disturbed soils, with a lot of fungi, mycorrhiza, and bacteria, is much more healthier in order that gives more water and works this network. Now let's from soil go to the plants, and here I bring this syntropic agriculture from Ernest Scott, which is this really great, interesting, inspiring work about try to work in companion planting, where you have the different layers. He talked about the 7 layers, so the the taller layers, the bushes layers, and creates this cooperation between the trees and layers. And basically what he's proposed is to accelerate the natural succession by creating synergies between these elements. And here what we see in the end is that it's much more productive, but also use less water. So when we talk about the water, it's really interesting when you add elements and diversify how this save the water. Why? Because this closing and creating these smaller cycles of water, because we know that the trees are also pumping water and are creating these good conditions for other more sensitive plants. And if we go to an even macro scale, there's, I don't know if you know, there's this biotic pump theory from Makarieva, but also other works that show us that is in the more landscape level. Okay, this is the south of Spain, where we have the Mediterranean Sea. And we know that in the past used to have a lot of forest, and there used to be a lot of the rain, the precipitation patterns would be quite more stable. And what we have noticed that in the current situation, the present, there's no these patterns of what precipitation have changed a lot. And we know that is one of the main reasons is because due to the deforestation. And why? Because this theory, what you say is that when we have a lot of evapotranspiration, it decreases the atmospheric pressure. And somehow this atmospheric pressure attracts these clouds full of water and increase the water cycle. So for the future, we should reforest a lot in order to create more and cycling these water patterns. Then, and to finalize, because I know that I have more or less 10 minutes, and I'm checking the time, yes, 11 minutes, we can bring the holistic management that Paul also talked about from Savory. Here a picture, when we have these high intensity rotational grazing, but it's much more than a rotational grazing. It's getting to know which animals are in the right place for the right reason, in the right time, and with the right behavior. The function, so the animals, the cattle here as a promoter of the soil conditions in order to create and regenerate the soil. Another picture from the same holistic management as well. So the before and after the same tree you can see here. And as Paola said, every year the cycle passes, you see the soil increasing, regenerating, and with that, much more water conditions. And we can try to add all these perspectives and the elements in a quite holistic management. And last week I get to know this project in Virginia, which I find very interesting. So I want to share with you as a final slide, which is you have your farm, your base map. You can have ortho mosaic maps, so satellite images, and with that, some of us can use it to assess the NDVI, which show us where there's more photosynthesis happening and less. So in green, a lot of photosynthesis, which is a proxy of water and less water. Then you can put a layer of these elevation maps, which is gives you the topography, and that's really important. Why? Because then you can create your contour map. So the lines to have an idea of your topography, and with that, it's really easy to understand the water flows. You know that the waters go from the high level to a low level, so you can start seeing the water flows, and we work with that in the more holistic plan, where you have the swales, you have the swale stories, you have the key line, you have your farm divided in parcellas, in areas to your control grazing, and with that you can start cycling within your farmer, and with that regenerate the soil and increase the water availability. Again, it was a tentative to apply these ecosystem-based principles to the water management. Hopefully it was interesting for you. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot once again, David. Super interesting. Your introduction about water management. There is here a question for you. So how exactly do you measure the elevation throughout the plot? Do I always need a rotation laser? I guess that this is for you.
Yes, so there's that's sometimes we need to have some skills to do it. So, but there's already tools available, even in the Google Earth, that is one of the engines that is well known, that helps you to with a certain resolution, spatial resolution. So if you want to have a high resolution, it's harder to do it. But that was my way to show you to show you how can you do it. But we can also do it manually. So there's different techniques where you can create the contour line. You can start designing your contour line with levels, and you can start pinpointing and marking your land depth and start from there. The key line methodology, it's a bit different. You need to find the key point and work from that to the different areas, because then it's not a contour line. There's a slightly, so half-degree slope, because the idea is to bring water from the wet areas to the driest one, so to spread within your farm the water, but always spread with this idea that to slow down. One of the mistakes that sometimes I find it is where you create a really when you have heavy rainfall, you create the water starts flowing, accelerating the flow, and with that you will bring erosion, and that's a problem. So the idea is always to try to slow down and storage the water there. But answer directly, if you cannot do it in IT, although nowadays there's a lot of available tools that do it for you, you can do it manually with a level.
Okay, thanks a lot, David. I think that we are really short of time, so I would pass the word to our 4 peasants that are already here. We have 4 peasants who will share their experience, their practical experience, and they will reprove what our technicians have said. We have Federico Sanbonifacio from Italy. We have Saad Dagher, sorry for this, from Palestine. Alpir from, I thought that you were the four of you, Alpir from Turkey, and the last one, I cannot read your name, sorry, from Portugal. So please, nice to see you.
Also David.
And David also, okay, thanks a lot because you disappeared from my screen. Sorry for this. Thanks a lot for being here, and please, it's your turn, Federico. Thanks a lot and welcome to the webinar.
Thanks, Anna. I hope you can hear me. Thanks for inviting me, Deafal and Anna, Paula, and I'm very glad to be here and to share my experience with all of you. To start, I would like to make a very short introduction to how I get to farming. It started, I'll try to speak slowly because of the interpreter, but I have a lot of things to tell you. So I'll do a compromise. I had the chance, I was lucky because my family had a 30 hectares farm in the northeast of Italy in a flat plain land, overexploited also. I mean, desertificated, they cut all trees and they overuse the land as with industrial, agri-industrial purpose. So I had the chance, it was very lucky, but it was also a big responsibility, especially when you are aware about the impact of agriculture and what you can do for changing a little bit the things. And so this awareness grew with me. I studied biology, so knowing about ecology, and then yeah, I gradually started thinking about taking care about this land. I got into a crash. I stumbled upon permaculture, agroecology, and so on. And so at the end, I end up with following very closely also the regenerative agriculture movement in Italy, especially with the DEAFAL. I attended many of these courses, and they're really interesting and helpful. I just one little things is that I studied also economics of innovation. I did a master after my degree in biology, and I was really it was strange because they've been telling me, they kept telling me that there is a trade-off in the mainstream economies between exploitation and conservation. And I didn't agree with that. I mean, I could agree if you talk about non-renewable energy, but if you talk about soil and fertility, land use, there's not this trade-off. In fact, it's confirmed by many farmers practicing regenerative agriculture, exploiting, using the land, but also regenerating and helping in conservation of the land. So this was my brief introduction. My farm, as I told you, it was a 30-hectare conventional farm on a flat land, irrigated land, so very fertile, very reactive. I had, it was conventional until 2012 when I started. I moved actually from center of Italy, Rome, to live here and to take care about this land. The first step, it has been to plant trees. I was lucky because I managed to get some funding from European Commission, European Union through our region, and I managed to plant a third of the whole surface of the farm. So it's about 10 hectares with edges and polycyclic forestry plantation. Some picture. I will do it now.
Just shortly, Federico, if you can get a bit closer to the microphone so that the interpreters can hear you a little bit better.
Yeah, I will keep it closer.
Thank you.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so this was the land at the beginning of in 2012 when I arrived. We already put a layer of biodegradable plastic to plant the trees. That was
Sorry, Federico, we cannot see the picture. We see the folder.
you can
Not
see only the
picture.
folder. I'm sorry. Interrupt the sharing. I don't know. Allora, share the screen. Yeah, maybe this one. You can see
Yes,
it now?
now we see the picture. Yes, thanks.
Okay, cool. I hope they will scroll the flow. Okay, so this was the landscape. Another picture of the beginning of the planting. This is the plantation, the South Forest, the polycyclic forestry plantation. When I talk about polycyclic, it means there were mainly 3 varieties, but then actually more, around 7, 8. And short-term trees, medium-term trees, and long-term trees with different cycles. That's why polycyclic. For different purpose, from plywood, poplar for industry, to platanus tree from burning wood, to long-term timber wood as oak and tilia and walnuts. This is still the beginning, the very beginning of the plantation. My brother. This is an overview on how the landscape changed. The edges in the center and the panoramic from the drone. This is the polycyclic plantation. I'm really happy about this investment we did on the land, and it's really giving interesting results. If you want, we can go deeper a bit into it. Then this is the poplar. The second step, this is the overview of the farm. The second step after planting all these trees was start thinking on what to do with all the rest, and how to focus on applying ecology and practicals on farming. And of course, we started with the seeds to find the right seeds and to let them adapt to the environment. For this activity, I've been very linked with an association in Italy called Rete Semirurali, which is an amazing network of farmers and sharing seeds and knowledge around seeds. And we started cultivating a population of ancient varieties of cereals, soft wheat in particular, and some local varieties of corn. Then, of course, in the meantime, while the trees were growing, the landscape were regenerating a bit. We started applying some of the technique of regenerative farming. So I built this compost aerator to move the compost and to keep the air and the temperature low in the compost pile. Then we did we started cultivating cover crops in winter, and we did also some direct seeding, even though actually our farm doesn't produce with these systems. Actually, we do minimum tillage and we use some cover crops. We also have some bees. This is my girlfriend Julia, and this is a lake we managed to do 2 years ago. Talking about water storage. Yeah, I leave you with this image of the landscape, of the edges, with the polycyclic plantation on the bottom. So I am back to you. What I wanted to tell you about my farm more. Actually, I was thinking about changing the technique of composting. So at the moment, we're using mechanization for keeping the compost, keeping oxygen within the compost and lowering the temperature. I was thinking about composting pile, especially to give added value to the branches. We start having a lot coming from the edges and from the plantation. So some more static but more high-tech technology to composting, collecting maybe heat and gases. And this is an ongoing process and still not ready, but it's also not very high difficult and high tech to apply. I would add also on the water management side, I'm thinking about giving space, as Alvaro was saying, to water. So increasing the little canal that now we have, making them larger, create another one or maybe 2 ponds more, and then probably also, yeah, this is the main things, because actually we have groundwater very polluted, and very polluted from nitrates mainly from the farmer in the surroundings. So I guess also the cover crops and the technique of regenerative farming we are applying are helping to infiltrate more and more clear water in the ground. So yeah, I didn't do water analysis recently, but I do believe that we are having an impact also, even if it's not that big surface, that we could filter and collect clear water. Then what else? Talking about
Federico, sorry for interrupting you.
Please.
Super interesting, but we are really short time. There are lots of questions for you in the chat, and we will also would like, sorry for this, but we would like to listen to our other farmers. And then
I'm sorry.
No, don't worry, but as we are really short time.
No, but I am done, really. I told you a lot already. Yeah. Thanks for having me again. And I will reply to the question.
Okay, we will have some space at the end. And thanks for the interpreters for all your work and efforts for helping us that everybody can understand this webinar. Now is the turn of Alp, I guess. So welcome Alp to the webinar from Turkey.
Thank you very much for having me, for inviting me. I just want to make sure that I know that I have 10 or 15 minutes. Could you please confirm?
A little bit less, 10 minutes, okay? Because we are really short of time. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. So I am in the southwestern part of Turkey, where the Mediterranean and the Aegean Sea converge, where we have a great variety of Mediterranean plants, all the way from olives to citrus to carob to medicinal plants and other fruits and seasonal grains and vegetables of all sorts, and high value nuts like almonds and walnuts and things like that. And one would think that it would be combined with tourism activities, hotspot for any farmer to farm. But given the conditions of both the economy and the socio-cultural, socio-environmental realities, that is not exactly so. I'll just give you a simple information about how farming is being affected, which is kind of my key motivator for doing what I do. And then I'll move on to talking to you about 2 aspects of my work. So farming is literally disappearing overnight as land prices soar and incentivize farmers to sell their land because of the explosion of the value of the land, particularly after the corona pandemic. So soils contain 1% of organic matter or less. Drought and water shortage are a phenomenon not only for summers anymore, but also for winter. Biodiversity loss is at an alarming rate, and pollution and climate change are realities that we all know of. So borrowing money for a Turkish farmer has also an inconceivable cost, going up to 40 to 50% interest rate, which is literally unpayable. Just to give some specific examples in conjunction, synthetic fertilizer prices as of July 2022 rose by 235% compared to last year. Fuel prices by 201%, fodder prices by 145%, pesticides by 105%, and so on. So the story goes. So in essence, we do need to put our priorities right. And according to my interpretation of the situation, I decided to go about prioritizing water, soil, and relationships. And I'll try to share some of my experience in the last 10 years on our farm that we literally built from scratch, from bare ground with purple thorns. I'll try to share my screen here quickly to show you some visuals. I hope that works. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes.
That's up.
Okay. So this is our farm. It's a 4-hectare property designed on 9 terraces. I'll try to move my cursor so you get an idea. So the road, the village road, divides our property, and here's the northern division of our property, and goes down the slope with 9 terraces. Here's where we start catching the water on the top of the property. We have cisterns around the property. This is one that collects 250 tons. Underneath this building here, we have another 70 tons. And we have 2 by 20 tons of water reservoirs, one up here, one down the property, down this way. And all are connected to one another. The ones down below, we power with solar. The ones further up, we use in gravity feed motion. We have, as I said, 9 terraces where we slow down the water going downhill. And just to give you a feeling of what it was like in terms of the soil color and cover, to the left of the road, you see our neighbor who has an olive grove. And this area here that I'm showing with the cursor, I hope you're able to see, is our seed garden. This is where we grow both and multiply local variety seeds and trees, as well as varieties that are both marketable and adaptable to our local and national conditions for market. This one here is our nursery of plants that have been grown in our seed garden for planting later on in the greater property. In total, we have 10 hectares. This property here is a 4-hectare property. So among the techniques that we use is biointensive for our seed garden. We used a lot of permaculture principles on designing our property overall. But in the recent 4 to 5 years, we've been heavily engaged with the syntropic farming method for our plantings and for conversion of our olive groves and our citrus groves. In and amongst, we grow a variety of timber crops at the moment, as well as medicinal plants and seasonal vegetables. So as we get closer, we can have a look at what an olive grove usually looks like versus this part here, for example, versus what it can look like combined with layered crops that like the shade of the olive or like to shade the olive from the direct sun. In and amongst the seed garden, we have mulberries for half shade, where we have sun-sensitive crops that we want to grow in the shade, for example. And this is the southern border of that same seed garden, to give you an idea. So we have Lucena that we get to hard prune 4 times a year for organic matter. So the key drivers that we say capitalize on our farm, as Paula and David have explained, to boost our organic matter, to boost our biodiversity, and to boost our biomass is from these crops, particularly Lucena and mulberries. So another maybe not so clear picture that contains a variety of crops also over growing the Lucena, such as grapes, and then in the background, poplar. So this is the inside of the seed garden. Since I have to run for time purposes, I'll just give you a short perspective of what it looks like in there. It's a symphony, and we're therefore able to grow crops like sweet potatoes and turmeric, for example, which are soils, as most from the Mediterranean would recognize, would normally not allow in terms of soil organic matter and humidity over summer. Over time, get to provide this kind of conditions for us to be able to grow it. This is an aerial picture of our nursery. And aside of that, in and amongst our olive grove, we're also growing multiplying crops and growing crops such as lemongrass and vetiver grass, which both are marketable in and of themselves as raw materials, but are also marketable as seedlings and are phenomenal plants for planting alongside contour lines and for stabilizing soils. They're very drought resistant and are very, very beneficial plants for our main crops. This is just to give you a feeling of a syntropic consortium that has just sprouted from seed and cuttings. So you see an almond with peanuts down below, a poplar on the overstory as an emergent, with rosemary on the borders, and an opuntia in the background as source for water.
Thanks,
Cover cropping and
sorry, Alp, we need
Yep.
to finish as well. Really sorry, I have been super. I'm the bad cop, you know. Really, okay, it was cool. No, go back. It was the very end of the presentation. Thanks a lot, Alp, for sharing your experience with us.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Sorry for being so aggressive. Like I need to.
No problem.
Okay,
I understand.
and you can find in the chat also the links to contact Alp and to see his work. And Alp, there are lots of comments also for you and questions for you, like where are you exactly in Turkey, and some questions regarding the techniques. So I'm not sure who's the turn on now. So who's that? If you want to go to them, please, we need to be on time. So in 10 minutes you should finish. Okay, so thanks a lot for all your efforts, and sorry if I need to interrupt you at the end. Thanks a lot and welcome, and thanks interpreters.
Okay, thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, so I will go fast. I will try to be very short. I can say that, as all of you, you know that the water issue and water scarcity is a big problem in our region, and especially in Palestine, in Jordan, and that area. And since maybe 26, 27 years, I started to think of how to change our agricultural practices, actually, not only in terms of water, but in general, because most people and most farmers, they shifted their agriculture from traditional way into chemical way. And when I talk about traditional or conventional, I'm talking about our agriculture, which was without any use of chemicals. But now we notice that most of our farmers are using chemicals. So since then, I started to think about changing our way of farming. And it took me maybe about 2 years to convince my father to stop, for example, plowing our olive orchards. And then I started from olives. I stopped plowing and start just cutting the grass, keeping the grass on the surface in order to keep the moisture in the soil, because I think first we have to think about water, not soil. Maybe, or maybe they are both interconnected, but without water we cannot keep life in soil. So water is the main issue in the soil. As I don't remember who said that. So water is the blood of the soil. So we have to start thinking of water as the main way to keep soil fertile and alive at the same time. I have 2 hectares, mainly olive groves. 1.5 hectare are olives. The rest is under vegetables. And I use agroecological techniques in order to use the water in a very wise way, I can say, by increasing the content of organic matter in the soil first. Second, by keeping the soil all the time covered with mulch. These techniques already very well known, but in Palestine, and I come from the middle of Palestine, in area of Ramallah. In Palestine, more than 90% of vegetables are grown without any use of water, just depending on rain. Even summer vegetables, we have different summer vegetables which we grow in summer using traditional techniques without any irrigation. So the idea here is to use different practices and techniques in order to overcome the issue of water. One of them also is the traditional planting of summer crops. without any irrigation, as I said. The other issue is the use of drip irrigation. These techniques that we use help us to overcome the water scarcity. In general, and I'm talking very fast, in general, I found that agroecological techniques are the main way to reduce the water use in farming, because agroecological techniques can help us in understanding nature in much more deeper way, because we just mimic nature by keeping the farm under huge biodiversity, so it's always intercropping and how we say, when you plant different plants together, not only intercropping, but I forgot the name.
Polyculture?
Polyculture, yes, exactly, polyculture. So it's about polyculture, mulching and deep mulching in order to build also the sponge-like layer. So all these techniques and the use of drip irrigation, all these techniques actually help us to end with the problem of water scarcity. This is actually my own experience, and now I am. I can say that I can produce much more vegetables than using chemicals. We produce a lot of vegetables by agroecological techniques. And now many farmers are following the same techniques in Palestine, and we have a growing interest among farmers in adapting agroecological techniques in different areas. But in our area, in our region, maybe because there are more agroecological farmers, in our area, there is an increasing number of people following these techniques. And we notice that this can actually solve our problem with water scarcity. I hope, yeah, I hope I didn't, yeah.
Super sad. Yes, super sad. Thanks a lot. I was worried about this.
Yeah, I try to speak fast, but
no, it's not a question of speaking fast. It's a question of having enough time to share your experience of Palestine, which is also on the other side of the Mediterranean. It's amazing from our point of view. We are in your other side. Thanks a lot, Zach, for your great experience also on water management. And finally, we have the other side of the Mediterranean Sea. We have Portugal with us. Thanks a lot, David, for your time.
Hey
and
there.
please welcome, and please keep it short. Okay.
I'll be as short as I can.
Thanks a lot, David.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, everybody, for the invitation. First of all, it is an honor to be here with you guys and to be sharing this moment. It's so important, all the work you've been doing. I think everybody already said everything. We are very short on time, so I just posted some links on our project, and I'm more than glad if you could visit them, check the pictures, check the videos, check everything. So shortly, some years ago, I was still on the bad side, so I was like Darth Vader. I was working as a digital strategist and giving consultancy to big companies, and I just realized in a moment of my life that I had to change, become a Jedi to save what's coming towards us. So I do really believe that we're walking through to a scenario where we have 10 billion of people in the world and 2/3 of the land desertificated. So this is what we believe here at Terra Mai, which means in our idea, Mother Earth.
that is the biggest problem. Desertification, because we're talking about ambiental desertification, social desertification, economic desertification, and of course about culture. If places are a desert, these things tend to disappear. So what is interesting about our project? We are a 562 hectare property in Alentejo, a very fast desertifying place. So not many people are living here. There is no workforce, and there are many problems. And we believe that soil is the engine for all of the kickstart of ecology. So everybody was talking about many things like permaculture, syntropic agriculture, scale of permanence, key line design, making roads in contour lines, all of these techniques. We apply all of them at our project depending on our context. So if we have the money, if we have the resources, and if it applies to our objectives, then we tend to apply them all, but always looking from a perspective that allows us to be analytics. So does it make sense for me? Is it bringing me further? Is it working really? And does Leslie Jaslin allows me? Because politics tend to be really not that helping for regenerative agriculture, at least here in Portugal, because you're not allowed to build water retentions in first lines of water. So we have to be very creative when we're doing a project like this. So getting back to our project, 562 hectares. So we have more than 800 animals. We have Mertolenga cows, we have goats, we have sheep, we have many different birds, we have horses. We have a lot of animal biodiversity. We use them under the principles of rotational grazing or in their different kinds of needs that we have from them. So we have the cows distributing all of the biodiversity of our fields. We have the goats fighting the bushes and other things. We have the sheep helping us in our agroforest and olive orchards and forestry. We have all, and the chicken also help us decomposing the sediments from other animals. So what we really want by doing this is to do no-till, no use of machines, not to have many expenditures in things that actually are compacting the soil and are not really interesting for us. I forgot an animal. We also have bees. We produce a ton of honey per year. And I think that the most interesting, since I have such less time, is to tell you that we're having great results. We are 30 people working every day. We just opened a restaurant. We produce more than 1 ton of vegetables per week, 11 tons of beef per year, more than 200 piglets per year as well. So applying all of these techniques, we are having great results. It depends always on the context, the investment power that you have, the resources, the size. So everybody has to think of its own context. No rule applies to a land just like it applies in a different one. And yeah, I think the biggest thing, and what nobody was talking till now, there is no question if soil and water are important and if these techniques are working. They are really working. And what is really difficult to quantify is how to go from regenerative agriculture to a business model that is also regenerative, because that's the only thing that makes our projects possible. If we are not making money, then everybody will look at us and ask, how the hell are you doing? Do you have an investor? Are you getting money from the state? How is that possible? And having 562 hectares and 30 colleagues that we are responsible for, well, we have no other way than go to market. So this is what I wanted to tell you. We are applying all of these. We are working a lot. Life is not a dream. So this is not like they print in the books and everything is very easy and everybody is very happy and kumbaya, my lord. There are really many things that will come against you when doing regenerative agriculture. Politics, people with disbelief, restaurants that are not supporting our kind of food because they don't want to have the work. So what is really important is that if you are into regenerative agriculture, that's the first step, and that's great. Now keep on striving, keep on fighting. In our case, we're just selling our first, or about to sell our first carbon credits, because we are intaking 6,600 CO2 tons per year with our kind of agriculture. We make money selling vegetables, meat, and all of our products, eggs, everything that we're doing. We're very polyphased, 2-star restaurants, the best restaurants in Portugal, and our own. We're just about to open a bakery, open another restaurant in another city, and it's going well. Well, it's tough, but there's a lot of people looking at projects like ours, and yeah, this experience that we are having is amazing because all of these techniques are valid. All of these techniques work. The question is really about your context. Do you have the money, the resources, and the land to do it? Can you take this to market? Is it a valid concept? And really, congratulations to all of my colleagues. The work that you guys are doing is insane. It is beautiful to see how you applied these techniques, how things changed, and how valid your work is. It's really honorable. Congratulations. Having somebody from Palestine talking about producing vegetables in the summer with no water resources, it's heroic. It's something that should be praised, and I praise that. I'm really thankful that you guys do this work. Since I don't have that much time, I really invite you to check the links that I just put it in the chat. I'll be here for some Q&A. Well, we have a volunteer program. You can visit the farm. Soon you'll be able to visit us and stay at our hotel. So feel free to click around, check the photos, make your questions. And there is no question if regenerative agriculture is working. Yes, it is. There is no question if it's needed. It's urgent. So let's all give our hands and go in the same direction and try to rebuild a concept of agriculture and co-living and co-sharing and respecting Mother Nature, because that's what we really need. It's to be conscious in all of the decisions that we take daily, not just farming, also buying stuff, the way we exchange ideas and our opinions with other people. We really have to think of the big picture, think holistically, and for a better future. Because I have 3 kids, and that's the most important to me, that they at least can have the same life quality that I have, or at least this principle of freedom, the perspective of future. And the work that you guys are doing, the work that everybody that actually is looking at these screens right now, and the energy that we are putting together, it's the most important. So thank you to all of you. Come and visit us, because we really have a nice place to see what works, what doesn't work, what makes money, what doesn't make money, because all day we have some successes and many errors that we are willing to share with you. And yes, so not having time, I had a presentation. Feel free to send me an email, and we are more than open to share our experience with you. And believe me, it's quite interesting what we're doing here because of the scale. There are not many regenerative properties with this size and doing everything. And we are, not just because we want to, because everybody tells us not to do it, but really because it's something that is important for us to create a space where we fight desertification and share with people what's working, what's not, and what will help us to have a better future. So thank you to all of you, and make some questions.
Thanks a lot, David. You did a great closing. So thanks, and for enthusiasm also. And you told there are some things that came out from your speech regarding your the question about the money, how to be sure of making money. And actually, there are some more webinars that we will talk also about this. There was a comment regarding gender balance as well. We were looking for women, but okay, unfortunately, this time most of us women are doing some other things at home, like relative issues or family issues. That's a really pity, because on 8th of March, close to the 8th of March 2023, we'll have a webinar about gender balance and women and leadership in rural areas, which is quite important, because as most of you have said, all of you are a team with your women, with women and men. So this is another issue. Regenerative will go forward also with men and women. Thanks a lot for all of you for your sharing your experience.
My wife is running most of the farming operation.
Exactly, everybody is running. In my case, it's my partner who's running the kids. So I'm really fortunate about this. Please, Nathalie and Sam are sharing with you the poll. There are some facts still here, but unfortunately, we need to close the webinar, because the interpreters really thanks to all interpreters from English to our English, which is not a native English. So really thanks for understanding all of us, from English to Italian, Arabic, French, Portuguese, and I don't know if I'm missing someone else, but thank you really a lot. And I think that we can collect also all the facts that were in the webinar, and maybe we can also try to answer in another moment and share it also the questions with you, because I think it has been a really interesting webinar. Me as a organic and regenerative agricultural farmer and also technician, it has been really interesting from my side, and it has been a pleasure to meet all this network, the Mediterranean network, agroecological Mediterranean network. I'm super happy. So Nathalie or Sam?
Yes, thank you so much. That was really so inspiring, and thanks a lot to the interpreters and the whole audience to be with us here. What I just wanted to say is that this webinar will be, the recording of in English will be available on the Urgency TV YouTube channel, and you will get a link. We have your emails from the registration, so you will get a link to this, and we will also have a blog where we will share the presentations and contacts. So you will get all of this after the webinar, and the other language versions will also be added to the channel after. So nothing is lost. So you will get all of this a bit later after the webinar. So thanks a lot.
I've just added the link to the Urgency YouTube channel where this will all be uploaded. And as Natalie said, we will share all the wonderful information that came out of this webinar, the presentations, the links, so we can keep the conversation going. So I'll just add my thanks to the presenters, big thanks to the interpreters, we really appreciate it, and to our facilitator, Anna, thank you very much.
Yes, thanks a lot. And thanks a lot for everyone for keeping the time. It was really great.
Thanks a lot. And please be ready for this summer or winter time, I guess the winter time, that we will travel from Alentejo to Palestine. I'm getting ready for that, okay? So be ready that you will receive a lot of people. There was a super quick question regarding the trees for Sad, I guess, or for Al. What are the trees on your properties? I think that you can really short answer, or I don't know. It was from the interpreter.
Oh, do you mean now? Why don't you send me an email? I'll just write my email address here, and you can just email me.
That works. Thanks, Al.
Okay, perfect. Because as the question was coming from an interpreter, I thought, okay, maybe they have some more time.
Was that Marion? Was that Marion?
No, it was Greg.
Greg, okay.
But I believe it was a question within the entire interpreting team.
What shall I do?
The name of the tree: mulberries, leucine,
Leucana, red pines, carob. I mean, there are a few varieties I could gladly share, but I don't know which address to choose here. I'll just send it to N Teresa, or
if you send I mean, you can send it to the coordinating. The webinar.
Okay. Maybe if you can look also for the Latin name, because it would be helpful. With the name of the plants are always useful to have that in Latin, so we can all understand if you know the Latin name. Okay. So thanks a lot to everybody. Buonanotte, and see you in the next webinar. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Nat, I think we can stop the